It's Monday, May 4th. In the headlines in local news, Senate tightens cybercrime laws. Continued debate on the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority NARA bill amid oversight concerns. In business news, we have the latest market updates. Regionally, Guyana president calls for stronger cooperation among government and workers. And in sports, Jamaica breaks a mixed 4x100 world record at World Relays. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Brittany Clark. The government is tightening Jamaica's cybercrime laws with a particular focus on protecting children and strengthening the laws that tackle digital offenses. The Senate on Friday passed the Cybercrimes Amendment Act, introducing tougher penalties for offenses committed online, especially those targeting minors, and expanding the legal definition of key cyber offenses to address evolving digital threats.
The Senate has approved major amendments to the Cybercrimes Act, strengthening protections for children and closing gaps in Jamaica's online crime laws. Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Minister, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, who piloted the bill through the upper house, shared that key changes include tougher penalties for offenses against minors with sentences of up to 20 years for cyber-enabled fraud or forgery.
Mr. President, Clause 3 amends Section 4, and it does so by strengthening protection for minors by amending the penalty framework of Section 4 of the Act so that whereby access to any computer program or data held in a computer, an offense is committed against an individual under 18 years old, the Circuit Court may impose imprisonment for a term not exceeding 20 years, Mr. President. And the objective of this amendment is to communicate to the society at large and indeed to the judiciary that there is a policy position that is being supported by the legislature that cybercrimes committed against children must be treated more seriously and demonstrably so, and so they must carry a harsher penalty.
The law also expands protection against the non-consensual sharing of intimate content, replacing sending with the broader term publishing to capture more online offenses.
It redefines publishing, the concept of publishing, to ensure that once it is made public, whether it is by sending, by posting, by transmitting, that once it is no longer privately held by one person, that the offense can manifest itself. Mr. President, it also creates the new offense and addresses the very real issue of non-consensual sharing or publishing of intimate content, and that is often known around the, casually as revenge porn.
Support for the changes was shown by opposition senators.
I want to associate myself with many of the comments that the minister would have in particular directed to the public. And this is a very important piece of legislation, and I think strikes to the heart of central issues relevant to our everyday lives.
Lawmakers say the updates modernize Jamaica's cybercrime framework and strengthen protections for vulnerable users, especially children.
The debate over the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority NARA bill has now moved to the upper house as senators begin their review of legislation that will establish a new body to lead Jamaica's rebuilding efforts in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. The bill, already passed in the House of Representatives along party lines, continues to face scrutiny from the opposition over concerns about oversight and accountability. Opening the debate in Senate, Government Senator and Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon defended the legislation and challenged key objections raised against it. She argued that NARA is necessary to cut through bureaucracy and speed up disaster recovery.
Now, Mr. President, if the existing machinery cannot consistently spend its annual capital allocation, then the question answers itself. Why do we need a NARA? That's the reason. A framework that cannot reliably deliver what is budgeted in normal times cannot be expected to coordinate and execute the post-Melissa reconstruction and resilience building program.
One of the main criticisms of the bill is the concern that it concentrates significant power and access to large sums of funding, reportedly in excess of $1 trillion within a single authority. Dr. Morris Dixon rejected that argument, insisting the framework includes strong safeguards and multiple layers of oversight, including Parliament and the Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Oversight Committee, JAMROC.
So in place of a governing board, public accountability and oversight for NARA will, in part, be provided by JAMROC, the Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Oversight Committee, and the already existing accountability and oversight framework that exists within the Parliament, that includes the Auditor General, and that includes the Integrity Commission.
She also emphasized the urgency of legislation, noting that many communities in Western Jamaica continue to await critical recovery support that NARA is intended to accelerate. Jamaica's new National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA, is being described as a game changer for the real estate and investment sector, with government saying it will speed up approvals and reshape infrastructure development nationwide. Speaking at the Real Estate Training Institute and CCIM Institute partnership signing in Kingston, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development, Robert Montague, says NARA marks a major shift in Jamaica's development model, particularly for large-scale projects, and will address long-standing delays that have slowed investment.
It is not only to build back after a disaster, which was no Hurricane Melissa. It is to build resilience. It's not to replace the drain that used to be. It is not to repair the road that is. It is to move that road from the coastline inland and make it better, stronger, wider, and more resilient so we can withstand more disasters, because they are going to come.
The minister says delays and uncertainty in approvals have discouraged investment, but NARA will improve clarity and predictability for developers while unlocking new land along major corridors to boost residential, tourism, and commercial development.
So when those areas are now opened up, real estate professionals who are certified by CCIM will now see the trends and see the potential. And when more and more hotels, villas, apartments for Airbnb are built, they have to be sold and resold. And this is where real estate comes back in to play a vital role.
Montague says the expectation is that NARA will accelerate activity across the sector.
So NARA was specially designed for real estate professionals. And we believe that NARA, when it begins to implement the projects, we will see real estate development in Jamaica going on steroids. So the NARA Act means more project, more business for you, more employment for the ordinary Jamaican, and more opportunities for all of us. It will mean more economic growth.
The Students' Loan Bureau, SLB, has extended its debt reset program to December 2026, giving borrowers more time to regularize their accounts and access financial relief measures. The program, which was originally set to end in April 2026, offers waivers on late fees, insurance charges, and interest arrears, as well as incentives for borrowers in good standing. SLB Executive Director Nikisha Walsh says the extension follows customer feedback, with many borrowers holding significant arrears and needing more time to benefit. She says eligible customers include those who access the targeted loan facility, whether in arrears or in good standing, with benefits including partial loan reductions and full waivers on certain charges. However, Walsh stresses that the relief is not automatic and borrowers must apply through the SLB website. Over 21,000 borrowers are eligible for the program. Time now for the Business Report with Denise Williams.
Welcome to today's Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, bringing you the developments shaping markets, capital access, and business decision-making across Jamaica and the region. Let's get into the stories that matter. Carib Cement achieved record cement sales of approximately 96,000 metric tons for the month of February. In addition, for the first quarter ending March 31, 2026, the company reported revenue of $9.3 billion, representing a 12.9% year-over-year increase. This performance is credited to the $6.7 billion debottleneck investment, which has significantly improved kiln output and operational efficiency, resulting in its record cement sales in February. Mayberry has closed its public bond offering more than a week earlier than the scheduled start. The bond was opened on April 13 and was to close on May 11. It closed Friday. The brokerage and investment company initially sought to raise $2.06 billion, but earlier this week upsized the offering in response to strong demand and ultimately received applications in excess of 3 billion Jamaican dollars. Additionally, Mayberry Investments is reporting strong progress on the Hambani Estates luxury housing development in Kingston. The investment firm says it has received 7 practical completion certificates for units at the upscale gated community located on Bamboo Avenue in Ligani. All 7 completed homes are already under contract for sale at a price in excess of US $1 million each. Mayberry says construction is now running ahead of schedule, with the project on track to be completed before June 30, 2026 deadline. The company adds that sales proceeds to date have already covered all expected development costs and are generating a surplus. The company also noted that it structured and arranged corporate notes for First Rock Caribbean and its subsidiary FCH Jamaica developers to finance the project. For the trading period of May 1, 2026, the most actively traded securities were Wigton Energy Limited with 23,189,701 units, representing 48.87% of market sales activities. Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited with 4,906,067 units, representing 10.34% of market sales activities. Express Catering Limited with 3,275,259 units, representing 6.9% of market sales activities. Investor activity remained concentrated in solar energy, transportation, and distribution plays, signaling continued interest in dividend-producing and strategic assets. Turning to the foreign exchange market based on Bank of Jamaica data for May 1, 2026, Forex traders recorded significant activity with strong demand across major currencies. For the US dollar, trading margins reflected steady liquidity, with the US selling at $156.47 and buying at $158.21. For the Canadian dollar, moderate gains supported by $1.25 transaction spreads. The Canadian dollar sold for $116.28 and was bought for $115.03. For the British pound, continued volatility offered short-term trading opportunities of $8.39 in profits for the banks. The British pound sold for $216.26 and was bought for $207.87. These movements underscore the importance of cash flow timing for currency awareness for businesses managing import costs, debt servicing, or overseas exposure. For our credit report tip of the day, as your child prepares to enter university, you're likely thinking about tuition, housing, and emotional readiness. But there's another transitioning happening quietly in the background, and that's financial identity. One of the most underrated tools you already have to guide them is your own credit report. Not as a lecture, not as a warning, as a living case study. Many parents hesitate to show their credit report because it's not perfect, but that's why it's useful. A credit report is more than a financial document. It's a map of your lived experience. When you use it to mentor your child, you're not just helping them build credit, you're equipping them with a toolkit for independence, resilience, and opportunity at every major turn in life. And that's today's Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, bringing clarity to capital markets and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay intentional, and keep building forward. See you soon.
In regional news, as countries marked Labor Day on May 1st, the president of Guyana used the occasion to call for stronger cooperation between workers, unions, and government to protect jobs and livelihoods in an increasingly uncertain global economy. Irfan Ali says rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and growing geopolitical tensions are creating new challenges for workers and do require a shift towards greater collaboration and partnership.
Labor Day, also known as Workers' Day, is a global holiday celebrated on May 1st to honor the achievements of the labor movement, advocate for workers' rights, and promote fair working conditions, including the standard 8-hour workday. Against that backdrop, President Irfan Ali, during his address to the nation, called for deeper cooperation between unions, workers, and the government.
There must be a deliberate shift toward deeper cooperation, collaboration, and mutual respect.
According to the president, new and complex challenges confront workers: global inflationary pressure, supply chain disruptions, and the shift in geopolitical tensions all threaten the security and livelihoods of working people, hence a reset is needed. He said there must be a move away from entrenched conflict and confrontation by fostering a modern culture of industrial relations grounded in partnership that can better shield workers from external shocks and safeguard their standard of living.
In so doing, we will not only honor the legacy of those who fought before us, but also future-proof our economy.
Ali said it is essentially fitting that we pay tribute to the instrumental role played by workers and the working class, ensuring that the gains made are preserved and strengthened for generations to come. He said his government has demonstrated its commitment to the nation's workers by increasing the income tax threshold from $65,000 to $140,000. Tax provisions for families were also adjusted. Additional reforms to reduce tax burden on individuals holding a second job and a slew of other measures were also announced. He said all of this was done to ease the burden on the working class. Marvin Cato reporting for HGP Nightly News.
In Antigua and Barbuda, Prime Minister Gaston Brown and Attorney General Sir Stedroy Benjamin have been sworn in hours after the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party secured a fourth straight term in a landslide general election win. The swearing-in ceremony at Government House took place less than 12 hours after polls closed, with the administration securing 15 of 17 seats. Alicia George reports.
Gaston Brown now holds the title Right Honourable, formally conferred following his historic fourth consecutive election win. Despite the new honour, he retains responsibility for finance, corporate governance and public-private partnerships. Sir Stedroy Benjamin also continues in his role as Attorney General with responsibility for legal affairs, public safety, immigration and labour. Both men took the oath of office, pledging to uphold the Constitution and discharge their duties without fear or favour.
I, Gaston A. Brown, do swear
that I will honour, uphold and preserve the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda and the law.
That I will conscientiously, impartially and to the best of my ability discharge my duties as Prime Minister.
Discharge my duty as Attorney General and do right to all manner of people without fear or favour, affection or ill will.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Governor-General His Excellency Sir Rodney Williams said the results gives the government the stability and authority needed to tackle national challenges.
To the Prime Minister-elect and the Attorney General-elect, as you take your oaths today, you do so backed by a renewed and powerful mandate. The expectations, I must warn you, are high. but so is the level of experience and wisdom that you both bring to these high offices.
The oath binds them to confidentiality in cabinet matters, a key requirement for the functioning of government. The remaining members of parliament-elect are expected to be assigned portfolios next Tuesday at the American University of Antigua. Elisha George for ABS News.
In Trinidad and Tobago, concerns are being raised about the health of the region's soils and the impact on food systems and environmental sustainability. At a recent professional inauguration lecture at the University of the West Indies, experts warned that declining soil quality could contribute to flooding, environmental damage, and threats to agricultural productivity.
The University of the West Indies held its professorial inauguration lecture recently, where it explored if the foundations of our food systems and environmental sustainability are quietly under strain. Dean of Faculty of Food and Agriculture, Professor Mark Woodvera, explained that soil is a complex living system that controls how water moves through the environment and how land responds to rainfall. He also highlighted Trinidad and Tobago's varied soil conditions, noting that differences between northern and southern soils require careful, site-specific management to avoid environmental and infrastructure challenges. Professor Woodvera says soil must be understood as a key regulator of environmental systems.
So as a soil physicist, we look at the physical, the physical conditions and processes of the soil that are governing water resources, plant growth and remediation, and a host of other things.
He warned that when soil structure breaks down, the effects are often seen in flooding and environmental damage.
So if you have a soil that is completely dry, what do you think will be in it, in the pore spaces? Air. It is exclusively going to be air. And if you have a soil that is saturated, the pores are fully saturated with water, then air will be completely excluded. And the soil will be fully, or the pore spaces will be filled up with water.
He also pointed to the country's diverse soil types and the need for proper management.
The number of distinct soils that you have in Trinidad, you cannot get it in large continental countries. And I always, when I came in and I started hearing about Kalaloo and so on, I said, okay, so this Kalaloo, and I look at the people, Kalaloo, and I look at the soils, Kalaloo. I said, this thing is exciting, let's get going.
The lecture forms part of wider discussions on environmental sustainability at the University of the West Indies. Nicole Dookie, TTT News.
In sports, we are out the blocks with athletics. Jamaica delivered a historic performance on the final day of the World Relays, breaking the mixed 4x100 meters world record for a second time in less than 24 hours and securing multiple podium finishes. The quartet of Akeem Blake, Tina Clayton, Kadrian Goldson, and Tia Clayton returned to the track on Sunday to shatter their own record, clocking a stunning 39.62 seconds after setting the previous mark of 39.99 just a day earlier. There was more success in the women's 4x100 meters, where Brianna Williams, Jadine Williams, Lavanya Williams, and Elaine Thompson-Hira combined for gold in 42 seconds. Jamaica also secured silver in the mixed 4x400 meters with a national record of 3 minutes, 8.24 seconds, finishing behind the United States, which won in a championship record of 3 minutes and 7.47 seconds. Meanwhile, Jamaica booked a spot in the men's 4x100 meters at the next year's World Athletics Championships in Beijing, winning their second chance runoff heat in 38.14 seconds. The mixed 4x400 and both mile relay teams also finished second in their runoffs and will now seek qualifying performances over the next year to secure places in Beijing. In football, the appointment of the next head coach of Jamaica's senior men's football team has been pushed back by about a month. Jamaica Football Federation President Michael Ricketts says the delay follows a recommendation from the Federation's technical committee to extend the timeline in order to attract more applicants. The current staff, led by interim coach Rudolph Speed and assistant Miguel Coley, will remain in charge on short-term contracts until after the Unity Cup in England later this month. Speed and Coley are considered the leading candidates, though Speed has faced criticism following Jamaica's intercontinental playoff loss to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The federation says a permanent head coach is expected to be named after the Unity Cup tournament set for May 26 to 30. That's the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBC Jamaica. Thanks for watching.